Let me see your hands! Go!
Oh, shit! You guys!
PD, there's a gun! There's a gun!
Gunfire echoes through a quiet neighborhood in Kenosha as police take cover behind patrol cars and shout commands. The first 911 call came in fragmented. A woman screaming. Then multiple loud pops in the background. Then the line went dead. Dispatch sent 2 patrol units initially. Routine response to shots fired. No one on that first radio transmission knew hostages were involved. No one knew anyone had already been wounded. When the first squad car turned onto the residential street, the officer didn't even have time to park properly. A single gunshot cracked from inside the house. Then another. The officer braked hard and angled the cruiser diagonally across the road. Engine still running, door flung open, as he took position behind it. He radioed immediately. Shots fired, active gunfire from inside the residence.
Shots fired! He's in the house!
Multiple victims possible. That one transmission changed everything. Within seconds, additional units were rerouted. Sirens converged from different directions, cutting through the otherwise quiet afternoon. Neighbors who had stepped onto their porches moments earlier disappeared inside, doors slamming shut. The house itself sat midway down the block. 2-story, light siding, front blinds partially drawn. No visible movement from the outside. Then another burst of gunfire came from an upstairs window. Glass shattered outward. An officer crouched low near a mailbox as debris rained onto the lawn. Get back inside, another officer shouted toward a man who had been standing at the corner filming with his
Where's it? Ma'am, you gotta move! Get out of it! Get moving! Get the fuck out of here! Leave!
phone. The perimeter began forming organically at first. Officers parking at angles using engines as ballistic cover. One unit pulled up at the far end of the street to block traffic. Another moved to the alleyway behind the property. The radio traffic intensified. Do we know how many inside? Unknown. Any hostages confirmed? Caller reported multiple people screaming. A woman suddenly bolted from the side yard of the target house. She stumbled across the grass, clutching her side, blood visible through her shirt. 2 officers sprinted from behind a patrol car, dragging her behind cover as another round struck the pavement feet away. She was conscious, but barely. He's inside, she gasped. He's shooting everyone. That was confirmation. An ambulance staged 2 blocks away until officers could create a safer corridor. The wounded woman was loaded quickly, paramedics working frantically as the vehicle reversed out under escort. Inside the house, more movement. A silhouette crossed second-floor hallway. Another shot rang out, this one directed toward the street. An officer returned fire, controlled, measured, aiming at the window frame where the muzzle flash had appeared. The sound of rifles joining the scene signaled the arrival of supervisors and specialized units. Officers retrieved long guns from locked racks inside their cruisers. The street transformed in less than 5 minutes from suburban calm to tactical grid. A sergeant took command near the intersection, crouched behind the hood of his vehicle, with a portable radio pressed to his ear. Containment first, he said sharply. Nobody goes rushing in blind. 2 officers moved along the side of a neighboring house, using fences and parked vehicles as concealment. Their job wasn't to breach. It was to watch for escape. The backyard backed into a narrow stretch of open land with sparse trees. A second containment line formed there. Overhead, the distant thrum of a news helicopter began circling. Inside the target house, another scream echoed, cut short by a gunshot. That sound carried. Every officer on scene heard it. The tension wasn't just professional now. It was personal. A tactical unit arrived roughly 15 minutes into the standoff. Dark uniforms, heavier vests, ballistic shields removed from the rear of an armored vehicle that pulled into position halfway down the block. Neighbors were escorted out in groups under police guidance, hands raised as they hurried across lawns to safety. One elderly man resisted at first, insisting he needed his medication. An officer firmly grabbed his arm and told him he would not be allowed back until the scene was secure. Inside the house, sporadic gunfire continued. No steady barrage, just bursts, controlled, intentional. Whoever was inside wasn't firing blindly. A negotiator attempted contact using a loudspeaker. "This is the Kenosha Police Department. We want to talk to you. Come to the door with your hands up." No response. Another gunshot shattered the lower front window. Glass sprayed across the porch. The negotiator tried again. Silence. Then a voice from inside, faint but audible. "Stay back." The tone was agitated, not panicked. Officers repositioned slightly, anticipating a possible exit attempt. Instead, another figure emerged from the front doorway. A teenage boy, hands trembling above his head. He stepped slowly onto the porch. Officers shouted instructions. "Walk toward us. Keep your hands up." He obeyed, descending the steps carefully. 2 officers grabbed him and pulled him behind cover. He was shaking violently. "He shot my mom," he said. "He's still upstairs." That information traveled through the radio chain instantly. Now there was clarity. Wounded victims inside, at least one fatal possibility. Suspect still armed and mobile. The armored vehicle rolled closer, stopping directly in front of the house. Officers used it as a moving shield to approach the entryway. Another command was issued over loudspeaker. "You need to come out now. This ends safely if you come out now." Instead, a single shot rang out from within. Then quiet. Too quiet. Several seconds passed. No movement at the windows. No footsteps audible from outside. The quiet stretched uncomfortably long.
There's a lady in the house that stopped fighting out the window.
A tactical team formed at the front of the armored vehicle, stacked behind a ballistic shield. One officer carried a breaching tool. Another held a rifle aimed at the doorway. The command was given. They moved. The front door was forced open with one heavy strike. Officers entered rapidly but methodically, clearing the immediate living room area. Furniture overturned. Blood visible near a hallway entrance. A woman lay on the floor, motionless. One officer checked for a pulse while others continued forward. Up the staircase. Slow, deliberate. Every step calculated. At the top landing, they found him. The suspect was seated against a bedroom wall, handgun in his right hand. There was a single gunshot wound to his head. Blood pooled beneath him. He had shot himself. The weapon lay loosely in his grip. Officers approached cautiously, kicking the gun away before checking for signs of life. There were none. Downstairs, paramedics were cleared to enter. 2 additional victims were located. Both wounded, but alive. They were carried out under escort, loaded into waiting ambulances. Outside, the street remained locked down. Neighbors watched from behind police tape. Within less than an hour, the gunfire had stopped. But the house stood as a silent witness to what had unfolded inside. The man who had opened fire had chosen not to surrender. Instead, as the perimeter tightened and options narrowed, he ended his own life. And for the officers who had rushed into that neighborhood unsure of what they were facing, the chaos had ended not with an arrest, but with a body at the top of a staircase, and questions that would linger long after the tape came down, long before the first patrol unit turned onto that block in Kenosha. The atmosphere inside the house had already deteriorated into something volatile and unstable. Though from the outside it appeared like any other residential property sitting quietly beneath an overcast sky. There were no broken windows, no shouting audible from the street, no visible warning that within those walls tension had been building steadily over the course of several hours. According to what surviving occupants later described, The suspect had been agitated earlier in the day, pacing through rooms, speaking in clipped tones, reacting defensively to routine questions, and interpreting minor disagreements as deliberate provocations. His movements were restless and repetitive, as though he were rehearsing arguments in his head long before they occurred aloud. At some point, the verbal confrontation escalated into something more physical. Objects were knocked over, a chair scraped violently across hardwood flooring, raised voices overlapped until the words became indistinguishable from the emotion behind them. One victim fell almost immediately. Another attempted to retreat toward a back hallway, but was struck before reaching cover. The teenage boy who would later flee described the air filling with thick dust from shattered drywall and the smell of gunpowder lingering heavily in the confined space. Between shots, there were seconds of stillness that felt longer than they were. During those gaps, he issued commands accusing, blaming, demanding compliance that no longer mattered because the situation had already crossed into irreversible territory. When someone attempted to reach a phone, another shot followed. This one aimed deliberately toward the sound of movement rather than a specific person. It was during this sequence that the first 911 call was made.
Kenosha 911, what's the address of the emergency?
I need medics and I need ambulance. Motherfucker is hurt.
What's the address?
1324 56th Street. I've just been shot.
Is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house. It's a duplex.
After the initial burst of violence, he did not immediately attempt to flee. Instead, he moved upstairs with the firearm still in his hand, positioning himself in a bedroom that provided a view of the street below. This decision would later define how the confrontation with law enforcement unfolded. By choosing elevation and partial concealment, he extended the duration of the standoff and forced officers into a defensive configuration rather than a rapid interior response. When patrol units first arrived and angled their vehicles for cover, he was already observing them through the upstairs window. He fired outward not as a random act, but as a deliberate attempt to keep them at distance. The shots directed toward officers were measured and spaced, suggesting he was conserving ammunition and maintaining control over when he engaged. That pattern forced responding units to prioritize containment rather than immediate entry, because a rushed approach under active fire would have increased the likelihood of additional casualties. Inside the house, the wounded were still alive during those early minutes. One woman, bleeding heavily but conscious, managed to move from the interior hallway toward a side exit while he remained upstairs. That brief window of separation allowed her to escape across the lawn before collapsing near the curb, where officers
There's a gun!
emergency under the threat of continued gunfire. Her extraction confirmed that there were multiple victims inside, and that the suspect had not yet expended all of his ammunition. As more units arrived, command presence became more visible. Supervisors coordinated positioning not through shouted chaos, but through controlled radio directives, assigning officers to flank coverage, rear containment, and evacuation corridors for neighboring houses. The goal was not aggression for its own sake, but stabilization. Civilians in adjacent homes were escorted out quickly, some barefoot, some clutching pets, all confused by how rapidly their routine afternoon had transformed into a tactical scene. Negotiation attempts began once there was sufficient cover in place to prevent a clear shot from the second floor. A loudspeaker was deployed, its voice amplified across the block with calm but firm instructions encouraging surrender. Each announcement was followed by silence that felt heavy and uncertain. When he responded, it was not to negotiate terms, but to reinforce distance. His voice carried frustration, but not panic. He did not plead. He did not bargain. He demanded that officers remain back. From a behavioral standpoint, this is significant. Individuals intending to survive often engage in negotiation as a means of delay or escape. Those who perceive no path forward sometimes reject dialogue entirely. His refusal to meaningfully communicate suggested that he was not strategizing long-term outcomes. He was focused only on the present standoff. As the armored vehicle advanced to provide ballistic shielding for a closer approach, gunfire from the second floor resumed briefly. The rounds struck pavement and the side of a patrol unit, but did not injure officers. Return fire was limited and precise, aimed only at visible muzzle flashes to suppress further outward shots. The exchange was not prolonged. Rather, it functioned as a boundary. Once he recognized that officers were not retreating, his outward firing slowed. Inside the house, the injured remained inaccessible until the interior could be secured. That reality weighed heavily on command decisions because every minute carried medical consequences. In moments like this, the psychological ripple often extends beyond the immediate victims. The sense of safety that once felt automatic becomes something consciously evaluated. As days passed, more details emerged about the suspect's mental state and the escalating conflict that preceded the shooting. While investigators avoided drawing simplistic conclusions, they acknowledged that domestic volatility, emotional instability, and access to a firearm had formed a dangerous combination. If you found this breakdown thorough and responsibly presented, consider supporting the channel. Stories like this take time to research and reconstruct carefully so that they inform rather than sensationalize. Your engagement helps ensure that complex incidents are discussed with context and depth instead of speculation. If you want more detailed case analyses that focus on understanding how and why events unfold, not just what happened, make sure to like the video and subscribe.